Hey there, it's Zach at Feel Free to Argue. This is actually take 2 on this video. The first one, I ran out of power, didn't have any more. Camera just shut off on me right in the middle of my sentence, right in the middle of my talking. So, don't have much good news for you people. I wish I could be saying, hey, you know, all those problems that we had, they're well on their way to being fixed. But you know what? The more I dig, the more problems I find. And while I was watching Democracy Now! This morning, had a lot of interesting things. Honestly, I think, you know, maybe people are intimidated by the fact that it's an hour long, but honestly, I think all you need to do is watch the headlines. If you just watch the headlines of Democracy Now!, it's like a little bit over 10 minutes a day usually, you will be one of the most well-informed people that you know. Honestly. There's just like so much amazing stuff that gets covered just in the first few minutes of that show. And, you know, if there's something else then that interests you, go ahead and check that out too, maybe, if you have time. But if you want to look at something that's like a reasonably small time commitment that will make you a very, very well-informed person, I think watching just the headlines of Democracy Now! Is a great thing. They're on the web. You know, you can do it. You can on your computer, and that way you can walk around and do stuff while you're listening to it. Or if you have to go to the bathroom, you can pause it. It's great. But you know, one of the things she was talking about this morning, you know, once again, you know, U.S. troops bomb a wedding. Why is it always weddings that we're bombing? I mean, how in the world are we going to be like winning hearts and minds of people if we keep bombing like the most sacred event in people's lives? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Not that in addition to the fact, I mean, if what we're trying to do is maximize civilian casualties, yeah, by all means, let's bomb weddings. You know, because I think you could be pretty much assured that you're going to get at least a few innocent people if you you know, drop a nice hefty bomb on a wedding. So that's like the first thing that kind of got me going. And though she pointed out, you know, this was the fastest we had actually admitted to a mass slaughter of innocent civilians. So, you know, I guess that's a positive development, eh? You know, at least we're more quickly ponying up to the fact that we're ruthless murderers. Yay, U.S. In terms of other news, Obama is now floating the idea of Larry Summers as actually being, you know, a decent person, maybe for the Treasury Department, you know, bringing him in from the Clinton years. Now, you know, probably a lot of people know Summers from his flap of trying to, like, get the head post at Harvard a few years ago, until he screwed up and talked about how he thought women weren't any good at, like, math and science, and then despite spending, like, the next 3 months apologizing for those remarks, he didn't get the job anyway. No, there's more to Larry Summers than just being, you know, your typical establishment white misogynist asshole. There's actually some deeper problems about why we should be concerned about him. Like, take, for example, you know, one of the frequent examples that I use on my channel is talking about how Clinton stood by, or actually was actively engaged in persuading Yeltsin to turn the tanks on the Russian parliament and their little experiment with democracy over there. And, you know, Summers was in Treasury at that time. He was heading up the Russia area, and he was one of the prime people telling Yeltsin that, you know, we don't care if you're getting political fallout and people don't like your shock therapy measures. I mean, this is the time to go forward with that. The peoples will be damned. And so, you know, the manifestation of those edicts from the United States was tanks, which they, you know, had already been talking about as the Pinochet option even prior to that. Why they engaged in the Pinochet option? Because, you know, when you're engaging in the same kind of, you know, economic policies as Pinochet, in order to put those across, you pretty much have to do the same things that Pinochet did to, you know, put them across. And, you know, Summers was integrally involved in that. You know, he was one of the cheerleaders. He was one of the people, you know, calling Yeltsin, putting pressure on him. So he was very active. And now this guy's going to be in charge of Treasury. Well, you know, so much for the poor in our country. You know, he's a big privatization guy. You know, that's one of the things he believed in. In fact, you know, right after the whole Russian debacle, he said, now we have to move quickly on all fronts, on the three Asians. And the very first Asian that he mentioned was privatization. So, you know, I'm sure with like somebody like that at the helm, you know, maybe Obama's promises about not like privatizing Social Security, maybe those will turn out not to be so serious. That's certainly a concern I have. And hey, while we're moving over into the financial sector, you know, there was like some interesting news in Democracy Now! About that as well. Let me read you some of the stuff. Oh, I mean, the fun part is like how hidden it is. Like, listen to this. This is like an amazing report. Bailout includes secretive, possibly illegal, $140 billion windfall for banks. Okay. Got your attention yet? Isn't this stuff fun? The Washington Post has revealed the recent $700 billion taxpayer bailout of Wall Street contains a possibly illegal provision that stands to give American banks a massive windfall. As part of the bailout, lawmakers changed Tax Code Section 382, which limits the kinds of tax shelters companies can use during corporate mergers. It was created to stop companies who avoid paying taxes by acquiring shell companies, valued by the losses on their stocks. The companies would then write off the losses and avoid paying taxes on their own profits. Taxpayers stand to lose some $140 billion from the move. Experts say the Treasury had no legal authority to eliminate the tax measure. Republicans have been trying to overhaul or eliminate it since its introduction in 1986. Congressional aides admitted lawmakers agreed to keep the change hidden. Let me read that part again. Congressional aides admitted lawmakers agreed to keep the change hidden, and here comes the punchline, to avoid public outrage. Staffers with Senate Finance Committee Chair Max Baucus, a Democrat, reportedly asked that an administration briefing on the tax code change be kept secret. One congressional aide said, "We're all nervous about saying that this was illegal because of our fears about the marketplace. To the extent we want to try to publicly stop this, we're going to be gumming up some important deals." Oh, it would be so awful if we were to gum up some important deals for people, you know, just because people are being turned out of their homes and losing their life savings. But, you know, oh, man. Well, let's read a little bit more, you know, just there's more stuff here. U.S. to restructure AIG bailout. In other bailout news, Treasury officials are finalizing a new rescue package for the troubled insurance giant American International Group. The government has already loaned AIG $143 billion. The plan would restructure the loan to give AIG more time to pay it back at a lower rate. Well, you know, and this is at the same time that, like, you know, banks are fighting hammer and tong to keep you from being able to hold on to your home. So, this is the new Unfairness. Doesn't it feel a lot like the old Unfairness? Feels that way to me. Hey, it's Zach Elliott. You can feel free to argue.